Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today we're going to kind of wade into some tricky territory. I think a lot of us have personal experiences with this, so it'll be really interesting to get into it. We're looking at physical touch in families and that sort of murky area where the lines can get blurry. We found this Reddit confession that blew up with hundreds of comments. Some people saying totally normal, other people totally not. And it's all about this person who shared their discomfort with their dad slapping their butt in passing,
Huh.
a habit that continued into their teenage years.
Wow. Yeah, you know what's really interesting is that the poster specifically said these weren't like hard slaps, it was more like casual taps.
Right?
But even that seemingly light touch created this sense of unease for them, right? It made them question what was the intention behind it? Was it appropriate? All of those things.
Right. And it's almost like that casualness makes it even harder to address, right? Because if it was aggressive, the
Exact.
boundaries would be a lot clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this kind of casual touch, it falls into this gray area where you're left wondering, am I overreacting? Are my feelings valid? Like, it's
Totally.
tough.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating because it forces us to think about not just the action itself, but the impact it has on the person receiving it, right? Like, regardless of what the parent's intention is, the child might be experiencing it in a completely different way.
Right. And that's really where it gets interesting. So let's unpack some of the different reactions we saw in those Reddit comments, because it really does feel like a microcosm of this larger conversation happening around touch and boundaries in society as a whole. We saw comments from people who completely related to the poster. They shared their own experiences with parents or coaches or even older relatives who did similar things.
Yeah, a lot of those comments, kind of talked about it as a rite of passage almost, like it was just a normal part of growing up in their family or in their culture. But even among the people who shared similar experiences, there was this split. Some of them remembered it fondly, while others admitted that it started to feel weird as they got older.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Like our perceptions of touch, they evolve over time. What might have felt okay as a little kid might feel totally different once you start developing a stronger sense of self. And you're like, wait a minute.
Right, your own bodily autonomy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why communication is so crucial in these situations. Some people mention that their parents actually stopped when they asked them to.
Oh, that's good.
It really highlights how important it is to voice your discomfort and set those boundaries, even with people you love. And that's so important that sometimes just having that conversation is enough. It can really shift the dynamic. It speaks to the importance of like open communication within families.
But it's not always that easy, is it? Reading through those comments, it's clear there's a darker side to this whole thing, too. People were expressing outrage, calling the dad's behavior abusive, regardless of what his intentions were.
And that's where we start to see that clash between generations and how societal norms have evolved. Like what might have been considered normal or even affectionate, a few decades ago is now being viewed through a completely different lens.
Yeah, we're so much more aware of things like bodily autonomy now and the potential for harm, even if it's unintentional.
Exactly.
There was this one comment that really stuck with me. It was from someone who said their parent actually learned about bodily autonomy and immediately stopped doing something similar.
Wow.
It wasn't about blame or anything. It was just recognizing that even well-intentioned actions can have negative consequences.
Right. And that's so powerful. It shows that change is possible even within families if we're open to learning and growing.
But it's not always easy to break free from those ingrained norms, is it? I mean, some people were sharing stories about trying to set boundaries with their parents only to be met with resistance or even anger.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a pretty common experience. It can be really difficult to challenge those long-held beliefs, especially within family dynamics where there's this power imbalance or this fear of upsetting the status quo.
One comment that really stood out to me was someone talking about how this kind of casual touch, even if it seems harmless on the surface, can have lasting psychological effects. They argued that it can blur the lines of what's appropriate touch and make it harder to recognize and assert your boundaries in other relationships.
That's huge. When children grow up in an environment where their bodily autonomy isn't fully respected, it can really impact their sense of self, their ability to trust their instincts, and even their ability to form healthy boundaries in future relationships.
And I think that brings us back to the core of what we're talking about today, the importance of recognizing that everyone has the right to feel safe and respected in their own body. Regardless of intent, if an action makes someone uncomfortable, that feeling is valid and it deserves to be acknowledged.
Absolutely. And it's never too late to start those conversations, even if they're difficult. Whether you're a parent, a child, or anyone navigating these complex dynamics, open communication, empathy, and a willingness to listen are essential for building healthy, respectful relationships.
So we've talked about those different reactions, the cultural shifts, the potential long-term impacts. But there's one thread in the comments I keep coming back to. It was this idea that some people were just projecting their own trauma onto the situation.
That's an important point. Our past experiences, especially negative ones, they absolutely shape how we see the world. It's definitely possible that some people were seeing echoes of their own trauma in this story, and that's what led to such a strong reaction.
But then others pushed back, saying that even if the dad had good intentions, the action itself could still be inappropriate. So doesn't that complicate things? Can't both sides be true?
They absolutely can. I think acknowledging the possibility of trauma doesn't negate the fact that certain actions can cross boundaries regardless of the intent. It's a nuanced situation for sure.
It's like that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Just because someone's meant well doesn't automatically mean it's okay, especially when it comes to another person's body.
Exactly. This situation really highlights how important it is to be constantly checking in with ourselves, examining our behaviors, even the ones we think are harmless or affectionate, and being open to the possibility that they might be received differently than we intend.
I don't know about you, but this whole deep dive has been a roller coaster. We've unpacked different perspectives, cultural norms, generational gaps, and honestly, I'm left with more questions than answers, but maybe that's the point.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to family dynamics and physical touch. Each family has its own unique history and culture and ways of communicating affection.
And what feels normal and loving to one person might feel uncomfortable or even violating to another, even within the same family.
Exactly. So I guess if you're listening to this and it's resonating with you, the question becomes, what are your takeaways? What makes you feel safe and respected in your relationship? What boundaries are important to you?
And if something feels off, even if it's coming from someone you love, remember, it's okay to speak up. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve to have your boundaries respected.
At the end of the day, this deep dive wasn't about judging or saying what's right and wrong. It was about encouraging all of us to reflect, to look at our own experiences and biases and how we navigate touch and boundaries in our relationships.
This has been a heavy topic, I know. If you're grappling with any of these issues, remember, you're not alone. Therapists, counselors, trusted friends, and family, they can all offer support and guidance.
And for more thought-provoking content that dives into the complexities of the human experience, be sure to check out Shauna Polidge's YouTube channel. She offers amazing insights on a wide range of topics that will really challenge your assumptions and broaden your understanding.
And don't forget to subscribe to Voices of the Soul for more deep dives into the messy but beautiful reality of being human. Hit that like button. Share this episode with someone who might benefit from these conversations. And join us next time as we explore another fascinating facet of the human experience. Thanks for listening.